Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 4 with Black Ice. Okay, we're going to continue this. We are sort of fighting the air war now over Britain. We've got well over 3,000 effectives. I got a few more, but not a whole lot more. Though shifting some of the other air forces around opened up some area where now they have some. Okay, decryption is improved. That will definitely help us. Now we can try to encrypt. Looking for another air base here that's somewhat available. I should probably see about building a few more. Okay, you come up over. Another ones. Once you're there. And go after fighters and bombers. What are we doing on our ground fights? Okay. You
Ihre Befehle?
support this attack. Yep, my other division.
Alright.
No, they're both still there. Okay. One just isn't attacking at the moment. Fine.
Los, ausrücken! Ihre Befehle? Ausrücken!
Yes, attack out of that mountain.
Zuhören!
To
Befehle!
retreat. Okay, well, now advance. Small arms factory. Okay, you can see the reduction in build costs for a lot of equipment and a truck deal with finished now deal. Right, Finns really aren't our friends right now.
Achtung!
Let's see, if we were to go from here, Well, we could make Newcastle, but maybe we have the air war meaningful enough? Let's see what we can do here. So I'm going to save this. This is just wild ass experimenting. So I would not in real life or even in any serious way war game this out without better reconnaissance.
Bereit.
But let's see. Do we control enough air power? No, we don't have enough airborne or air control. So let's
Ihre Befehle.
cancel that entirely. That was one zone up further than we... air zone up further than we control. What I'm worried about is if we drop directly on this unit here, we're going to have so little organization. Okay, let's see if we have that. No, we don't have enough air superiority there either. Well, before things start happening too much, let's see what we can do about that. Where are our contents? Okay. Oh, so that's not even letting us... Okay, now this is interesting, and you know, I've played this game a lot, but I've not done paratroop very much. So, what they're complaining about here is over the English Channel in southern England. Which is an interesting thing. Because we get to teleport aircraft to their locations, we don't get to teleport paratroopers. Now, okay, let's cancel this. I'm sorry, I'm not the greatest expert on this game. I know a lot of YouTubers. That's where their, you know, reputation is they know how to play the game better than you do. Don't know if this is going to be within range. Well, let's get him up here. Let's see if we can get him up here. Oh, come on. I know I paratrooped in before, but I just... Obviously we did it a bit down at Malta. Oh, we want to send them via railroad.
Ausrücken!
There, get there quickly. And where are my transports? There are my transports. Uri base. So I'm thinking if I can fly there, or maybe from there to Scotland somewhere. Or up to here and then come down. We're going to see about that. See what we can do. Yeah, keep our eyes on the ball down here in Africa.
Angetreten. Ausrücken.
Can you support that attack? Yes, good.
Angetreten.
You
Bereit
guys
zum
support this
Ausrücken.
attack.
Bereit.
We've abandoned that, so go forward. I know they're going to try to reoccupy it, but might as well see what we can do there.
Bereit zum Ausrücken.
Okay, guys.
Angetreten. Ausrücken. Zuhören.
Use support the attack. Are any of the air bases? Oh, this is now operational. Good. Good. Oh, well, no wonder it's operational. We control it now. So we've rebuilt it. Oh, man. I sort of lost the ball on that. Didn't pay it once we got it over from the Portuguese, and that's sort of why I wanted it from the Portuguese. Okay, I want some long-range fighters. Light bombers. Keep those groups not too big. Alright, yes, one more batch of... There we go, that will help us. We might as well assign them now. You off the Cape.
Zuhören.
I think that's all of them. Okay. Let's plan a naval invasion. From here to here. Now they're going to move units to occupy that province long before we can get this invasion. 56 days. Done. Okay.
Bereit?
These guys. From here. Okay, we can't reach there. Not surprised. Let's see what we can do from there. See if we can get any of those other locations. So let's march up there.
Zuhören!
Now,
Befehle?
there we go. Move part at a time because it limits the transports. That's one of the downsides, is I can't plan 6 different invasions without enough transports, and that's sort of kind of legit.
Befehle! Bereit zum Ausrücken.
Okay, well, we didn't take that province, but that's okay. We're just messing with them.
Achtung! Ausrücken! Ihre Befehle! Bereit!
You guys
Angetreten!
support them.
Angetreten!
You attack there as a distraction.
Angetreten! Ausrücken! Achtung!
The rest of the
Bereit
airborne
zum
force take a
Ausrücken.
boat ride right over here. Don't know why that's not up in Oslo, but there may be some very good reason for that.
Ausrücken!
Maybe they want me to invade. Maybe they think they've got a lot more time. Okay, good. Improved U-boat yards, shipyards. We were building some of those. Okay, who do we? Oh, the Persian Empire. Oh, great. We've been working on these guys for some time now, trying to get them to be National Socialists, and we've turned them over. That's just a generic portrait. The new Persian Empire. Great. Yes, we will invite to our faction. Not that I don't really want them to go to war with anybody. I hope they won't. So I don't know how good we're at fighting the Raj now. or invading the Soviet Union, though this was asked about. Now, okay, here's an interesting question. I'm sorry, I forget who posted the question. Is when were we going to invade the Soviet Union? And my first response to them is we don't need to make the same mistakes as Hitler made. Hitler invaded the Soviet Union because he thought it was actually going to be easier than the invasion of France, especially once the invasion of France was over with. He thought they, kick in the door, the house of cards would collapse. I think that was almost a direct quote, if not direct quote. Obviously he said it in German, but a general sentiment that he had. I don't know exactly why he thought that would happen. Whether it's his perception of communism or his particular perception of the Soviet Union, which he obviously didn't know a lot about. He did have people like Rosenberg around him that I believe was I know he had significant connections to Russia, but I believe he was descended or whatever from some Germans from Russia, shall we say, especially during Peter the Great's reign and after. There were significant moves by different Russian czars to get Germans to colonize in Russia. Down in this region, I understand, if I'm correct, there are, and maybe still there, though I think a lot of them were dismantled and moved after the war, or they fled, but there were a lot of sort of German villages that were sort of set up that just Germans lived in, to try to get a sort of middle-class farmer living there. And then there was also a lot of various middle-class technical type and tradesman type people that the czars tried to get to move into various Russian cities. So there's this, and they to some degree kept to themselves. So there's this group of Germans. Obviously there's lots of Germans from the Baltic states as well, but there is this group of Germans who had a significant connection to Russia, and a lot of them fled during the Russian Revolution. And I think Rosenberg, and I'm sorry, I forget his exact status. So he had a lot of knowledge. So Hitler had people around him about Russia, which I'm sure colored his vision of what Russia was like. I don't know, when you have the purges, show trials, which obviously Hitler knew about. So he may have just thought that between various advisors and looking at the situation, thought that the Russians were just in complete chaos and were going to collapse. So I sort of understand some of that, but he thought it was going to be really easy to do. So this is why he went in and did it when he did, while he was still fighting a war with Britain. Now, some of the talk I won't go into where, but some of the stuff, Churchill sort of, by the time he was in office, because you remember he gets in just as France is collapsing, and he's trying to keep them in. He starts, I'm sure, because I know enough about Churchill, he's looking at World War II, something like the Napoleonic Wars. Churchill was a big history nut, wrote some history books, particularly on his ancestor, the Duke of Marlborough, John Churchill, and how the Napoleonic Wars were fought. Basically, Napoleon could rule the continent basically whenever the British Army, which was a small professional army, could fight an equal or lesser number of French regulars, they would defeat them. Napoleon had some great regiments, but not all of his army was so great. And a lot of, the Austrians were highly trained for the period, but he kept defeating them, and that was different reasons. Basically, somewhat motivation of the troops, but also his mobile tactics just unsettled the Austrian high command. So that's why he was able to defeat a more professional army. But generally smaller units, not smaller as in smaller battalions, but smaller engagements, like I say, if on equal footing, the British were able to react quickly enough, where some of the battles with the Austrians were just huge numbers of troops, and it's not a flowing thing. And you can look at particularly like in the Egyptian campaign that the British came in and defeated the French occupation forces there, and other ones that they were able to do fairly well. But but Napoleon was going to have more or less a free hand so long as he did smartly on the continent, and Britain was going to rule the seas. Sometimes the French were able to build enough ships and be able to push them out of the Mediterranean partially, and there were some close moments, but Britain was doing well at seas. Well, that's sort of how I'm sure Churchill was looking at World War II until the U.S. gets in, okay? And, of course, until Hitler makes the same mistake that Napoleon did, invading the Soviet Union, well, Russia at the time, obviously. So he was going to use air power to protect Britain, protect the seas. He was going to use the naval power to constrain Italy in the Mediterranean. Not that really they had enough to be able to, say, sink all of the Italian Navy while protecting their convoys. I mean, they used heavy ships as well to protect the convoys. And things like that. And so they were going to do it. And remember, Japan doesn't actually go to war against the Western Allies until after the invasion of the Soviet Union. So Churchill's looking at a long war, looking at a war that he's going to keep fighting. Now, Italy obviously was unable to take the Mediterranean on their own, so Germany, and obviously they couldn't even take Greece on their own, so Germany intervenes. Now, if you can settle the land issues, basically North Africa at the time, and if you can rule the air, because it's going to take years to build a proper navy to defeat Britain's navy, but if you can, sort of like we're having problems trying to do an airborne invasion right here, obviously, if you can keep Britain from controlling, because you can keep Britain from moving ships around the channel with air power. So if you can rule the air, you can, with subs, you can try to isolate Britain. Without the U.S. in the war, you can see about taking on the Soviet Union. But they hadn't done that. They hadn't successfully taken Egypt. There was still a front here. Then obviously America gets in it. Germany's really weak, unable to properly respond to the American invasions of Vichy. The invasion of the Vichy happened just about at the same time as the El Alamein battles, so you get the sense that they weren't able to focus solely on Russia. So I don't want to make that mistake just to sort of play the historical game. Now, might I have done it? Yeah, No Man's Land helps us do that. Italy's doing okay down here. We have the Mediterranean. But I'm just still sort of worried about the U.S. coming and kicking my butt. But also, get back to the original poster thing, is if we wait too long, doesn't the Soviet Union continue to build up too much strength? Yes and no. Strength matters. It sure does. But strength matters more in the relative strength at the point of contact. So, how strong is the Soviet Union here is what matters. Not do they have some huge army sitting down here. So if they're fighting, and since the start of this, I've been watching this periodically to see that China is able to move into the Soviet Union. Now Japan's crushing them bit by bit now. Obviously they're holding out somewhat along here, but Japan's pushing into them. So this is obviously a distraction for the Soviet Union. Now, I don't know how big of a distraction that is, since we can't really see what the Japanese are can see over here, which is disturbing to me. If we have a bigger front, which obviously we now have, and I want
Befehle.
that,
Zuhören.
that.
Befehle.
Oh, well, let's do it by.
Ausrücken. Bereit zum Ausrücken.
Just so that we see a little better.
Ausrücken.
Yeah, you can drive. So that if we can approach from multiple angles, and we have the Finnish front here, it may not be too dangerous, but if we had Finland as an ally to move threatening deeper, that would encourage me. But with this sort of limited front, obviously we extend down into here. But we're not looking so great balance of force wise. Partly because we have a bunch of stuff over here, looking at the manpower, and going, yeah, what do we need to invade the Soviet Union for? I mean, obviously this is a game. If we were looking at a real world situation like this, let's first see about taking down Britain first, before we move on to the Soviet Union. And if we're strong enough, which I don't know if we are, but we have a lot of forces. You know, there's 20 divisions just right there. We have a lot of forces sitting along their border. So if we're strong enough, hopefully they won't attack us. And we'll keep that stalemate. Now, I don't know that just because I want to play with the newer version, I don't think this game we're going to try an invasion of the Soviet Union. I'm sort of looking to take out Britain to see what we can do there, because I want to get on and playing the new version. I hope you guys are sort of with me. I understand watching the storyline of the playthrough, and yes, as I posted, my sickness and inability to talk for a while, talk well enough, sort of lowered the numbers of views on this series. I also think maybe my talk of wanting to switch to another series lost interest, because people want to see the interesting storyline to see what can be achieved. That lost some viewers on it, but I also think what's lost a few viewers is they were playing with an older version of Hearts of Iron, we're playing with an older version of Black Ice, so if we get to a newer version, people will be more interested, I'm hoping. I sort of want to play with another country, though I sort of also want to play with Germany. I've got some good suggestions, and though you can always add yours, to what country we should play next. You know, so you can. So I think just talk long enough about the idea of, you know, trying to avoid a two-front war, or if maybe more appropriate, two-enemy war, because we're still looking at Africa here, which is a front. It's a thing. So thanks for watching. Thanks for liking the videos. Please post questions, comments, suggestions, ideas. Love hearing from you. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron.